So the last month of retreat, I kind of immersed myself in the Sangha jewel. I've really enjoyed the retreat very, very much. The fundamental vehicle, Arhat's path, and the path of the universal vehicle, the one that the Bodhisattvas take. And I used as the source of my inspiration Volume 6, which is Courageous Compassion, where His Holiness and Venerable line it out really beautifully, what is entailed to gain those paths. And then I also utilized probably equally is the teachings that Venerable gave on Paths and Grounds back in 2011 from the text of Losang Tayang. Just unbelievable the way in which he impacted this, more so than even, and from my mind, helpful for my mind in Volume 6. And as I was reading it, I started to see that I've had somewhat of an evolution on how I see the Sangha jewel. I don't know when it was, but it wasn't that long ago that I didn't realize that the Buddha was in the Sangha jewel. I thought that he was a jewel all by himself up there somewhere out in the universe, and that all the other Arya Bodhisattvas and Arhats, Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma protectors were over in another collection called the Sangha jewel. And then also, too, that for a long time, the Sangha jewel was kind of out there as a construct, that there were these extraordinary beings doing all these amazing things, and then there was little old me over here down below somewhere. So finally, because of the kindness of our teachers doing these commentaries, I've been able to connect the dots to help me to understand that. And I find this to be a really reassuring statement, is that they were just like us at one time. I find that to be a source of inspiration and reassurance that because this is a really long journey, that the Paths and Grounds really helped me to understand who they are as beings and how they go about the journey and what the progression is, what kinds of states of mind, which is what the paths are. The paths is not an external thing. It's the consciousnesses, the states of mind that progressively are developed over time. And then as a result of that, slowly my faith in the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, that they actually exist, because the paths to those states are clearly laid out in a very precise way. And that the Paths and Grounds themselves can give a source of inspiration. I found them extremely inspiring. Otherwise, I find that because I have such a propensity to fall into the laziness of discouragement, if I don't have something that inspires and reassures me, Dharma can get a little dreary, it can get a little weary for me when I start running up against some really old stuff. So through this retreat, the thought has come up, and we talked about it this morning with Venerable Seppel's teachings, is that one of the many, many reasons they are where they are and I'm where I am is that they have wiped their hands clean of the attachment to this habitual thinking of the happiness of just this life, the appearance of just this life. I have heard this term from Venerable. I've read it from Lama Zopa. I think Geshe Topke has used it. And as the years have gone on, this has been a huge part of my practice lately. And it has become an antidote to my confusion, like what's going on? Why am I so unhappy? Or to my stubbornness, or to my sense of futility when things don't go the way that I want. Ever since Venerable first mentioned that years ago, was either within the context of the 8 worldly concerns or the determination to be free, but I've always found the appearance of just this life is a major, major problem. And that the happiness, trying to just keep going for the happiness of just this life, is a huge obstacle to getting anywhere on the path. And so then I think about the Arya Sangha, and I say, well, how could they have been able to generate renunciation? How could they have been able to generate bodhicitta, along with some strong conceptual understanding of emptiness, to begin to vanquish this habitual thinking that we've had since beginningless time about the happiness of just this life? That they've had to be able to see it as a fabrication of the self-grasping ignorance that the self-centered thought loves for us to be able to indulge in because it keeps us trapped and bound where we are. So I put that so close to, at some point on the path, along with a lot of other causes and conditions, finally cutting loose of that thinking to see clearly that the happiness of this life is not tenable. It's not going to last. It's not the source of what we're looking for. And so, and for me, it's a crucial key, this statement, to keep me going. I mean, for me, I have a lot of detours. I have a lot of scenic overlooks on my practice. I'm easily distracted, off to here, off to there. I get a roadblock, a dead end. And so, and my addiction to the 8 worldly concerns, they're not far from my mind. I have to continually reassess and to see where I am. And when I'm afflicted, I get clarity slowly that it is the happiness of this life and the appearance of this life that's driving a lot of my actions, a lot of my speech, a lot of my thinking. And that the Sangha jewel, for the most part, in the beginning, all the way to the end, where they're totally over this. They're over this kind of fabricated, proliferating hallucination of where the true cause of happiness is. And so there are two. So as as I read the text, I read the commentaries, Venerable unpacks this in a really beautiful way. She talks about the 2 means of transportation to be able to abandon what I see as the major erroneous kind of thinking. And she explains this in really beautiful detail. And there's a lot of terms and paths and grounds you have to understand. There's a lot of definitions. There's a lot of terminology. And one of the words is vehicle. And she says that a vehicle can bear weight and it can also take us somewhere. So there's the fundamental vehicle, those practicing the vehicle of the hearers and solitary realizers, striving for their own personal liberation. The weight they bear is their own. And that the weight the vehicle takes them, that particular vehicle, because they're only holding the weight of their own liberation, takes them to that awakening of a hearer and solitary realizer. On the other hand, if you follow the universal vehicle, which the bodhisattvas and those of us aspiring to that, you are bearing the weight of all sentient beings. You are bearing the weight of being able to benefit each and every living being. And that vehicle, the universal vehicle, will take us to Buddhahood. And there are major fundamental differences here. The differences about whether you want peace for yourself or whether your aspiration is to completely develop all the good qualities, purify everything that's on the mind stream to be of the greatest benefit. So there's a huge difference in the motivation, which kind of determines the vehicle, the method side of the path, because the arhats have their own 10 paramis, they've got the 4 measurables, they cultivate a lot of beautiful qualities, and the result is very different. They realize the same emptiness, at least according to these texts, because they're from the Prasangika Madhyamaka view, is that the emptiness of inherent existence, both the fundamental vehicle and the universal vehicle, you have to realize that directly. But everything else, there's a strong differentiation. And that as Venerable as Sangha Kadri has been talking about, and we've talked about quite a few times over the years, is that the universal vehicle is based on the practice of the fundamental vehicle. There's no way around it. Venerable says we have to stop seeing these things as 2 separate things. We've got to be able to practice and actualize precious human life, the meditation on death and impermanence, karma, the disadvantages of cyclic existence, and to really see our situation about, just circling around and around, being reborn and reborn, and it's so unsatisfactory. And by doing this, by taking the step of the fundamental vehicles in the beginning, we begin to damper our attachment and the addiction to the appearance of this life. These topics that Venerable Sangha Kadra is covering right now is so important. Even as we're wanting to take this universal vehicle, transportation, we can't step over the fundamental vehicle. And for developing love and compassion for everyone, wishing all beings to be free of suffering and its causes, which on the most part are due to this conception of the happiness of just this life, and the unsatisfactory circumstances, we want to free them from all of this, and that it's not an easy task. That love and compassion really become, if we're not careful and we don't really get the why of how the happiness of just this life is untenable and it's stupid and it's foolish and it's keeping us bound, Venerable says our love and compassion is going to be extremely sentimental. It's going to be, she says, almost maudlin. It's going to be extremely sad. It's going to be self-pitying. It's not going to have a real teeth to it if we don't understand the situation we're in and the disadvantage and how we need to get out of this. She says the compassion for people who are poor, people who are sick, things like that. She says, we're not talking about that. We're talking about everybody's under the influence of karma and afflictions, and what does that do to us? Not just in this life, but in a whole lot more lives to come. And if we don't understand that for ourselves and have that compassion, that determination to be free from our own side, there is no way that we will ever be able to develop the kind of compassion we need to do what we want to do. And that she said compassion isn't just, the relationship is failing. I really see the suffering. And she even says, or even somebody who's dying. So I'm thinking about our dear Dharma sister who died this past week, and she says, even that, your compassion is for something even worse than the death of just this life. It's this whole idea about being reborn over and over and over without any respite. To get to the point where your compassion says, what the heck is going on here? I can't take it anymore. There's something untenable, undoable, unrealistic. I can't handle it. What's going on that this continues to happen? And Venerable says it brings a different quality to the love and the compassion then, because it's got this depth to it. It's got this clarity about the situation that we're dealing with. And not only, when I was thinking about this, it's not about just trying to understand that the happiness of this life is not happening, except for these little flickers, but even the wish to alleviate the suffering of just this life is also not tenable. We're putting Band-Aids on everything. So the Sangha jewel is attained because they walk away finally, once and for all this kind of thinking. They're done with it. I mean, the abandonment really starts there in this very, very deep way. And the task at hand in our practice is to help us unclench our minds to the addiction, the mesmerizing illusion of the appearance of just this life, seeing it truly as that's what the source of our unhappiness, our discontent, our frustration is. It's totally different than what we think. And the Buddha laid it out. The way out is laid out. And I know for myself that I can see, it's almost like a candle. It's almost like a match gets lit, or a dim flashlight on a foggy night where that illuminates this erroneous thinking. When the suffering comes so directly to us, we can see that what we've been investing is just the appearance of this life. But what's going on gets for a moment clear to us. But then we have to remember. We have to remember that the amnesia is so deep, and get into what I call the deep Dharma recovery program to really counter the addictions to the appearance of this. It is a recovery. It's a withdrawal. Slowly withdrawing ourselves to the hook, to the temptation, to the mesmerizing, enhancing, hallucinating part of it. And we have everything we need right now, whatever level of practice we are. It's not like we have to get somewhere. That the Buddha has laid it out with the initial and middle scope on what we need to address right now. And so by thinking about the Sangha jewel this past month and really immersing myself in the commentaries that Venerable and His Holiness have done, I have found myself so inspired and so reassured, so like feeling safe, like the one sentence that Venerable Seppel said today, the only refuge that gives perfect protection is the triple gem, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And I had never put my level of refuge in the Sangha jewel, the way in which I start to see it slowly starting to turn in that direction, to know that they're here in the world with us, they are guides, they want to support us, they want to encourage us, and that the Buddha laid out this incredible, it's like a GPS. You are here. You want to go there, this is what you have to do. And it's just, I find incredible amount of joy when I think about the Sangha jewel. through the passing grounds.